Hello there, metalheads, and welcome back to Metal Verbalizers podcast, season 2 right now. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about what we thought about season 1 and what you can expect from season 2. As the beginning of this episode, it would be good to do like a new updated presentation of ourselves. So my name is Erik, and my specialities on the podcast here is gonna be classic heavy metal and that 80s like glam metal and that sort of stuff. And well, what I do here on the podcast is, well, I co-host and then I edit and make the actual episodes in the end. But then we have Johan as well with me.
Yeah, and I'm doing more stuff like extreme metal subgenres, such as a lot of thrash metal and the kind of like subgenres within thrash metal as well, like black thrash and death thrash and stuff like that. As well as also genres such as death metal and black metal, and kind of more that style, the more extreme stuff.
Yeah, you have those more. What do you call it? Extreme metal? Is that really what you call it?
Yeah, extreme metal.
Yeah, and I guess that what you do on the podcast is more like social media and well, you co-host episodes and
Yeah,
that sort
exactly.
of stuff. Because you are actually the one that makes all the promotion, like on Instagram and Facebook, and all of the social media posts are made by you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing the posts on social media and stuff like that, and I'm also the one who's like actually uploading the episodes and make sure stuff like that happens. While you are kind of like the one who's doing all the edit and actually making the episode, but I'm the one who's actually uploading them so that the our listeners
listen to them.
actually listen to them.
But you do also record your own episodes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but also if we would start with what we're actually gonna do here in this episode, what did you think about season 1 of the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like I suppose you agree with that as well. I think that we kind of went into it kind of head first in a way that we didn't really have any previous experience in doing this stuff. So it's kind of like I think the way I see the kind of like first year of the podcast is kind of it's been kind of a trial and error in a way. It's kind of like trying out some things and kind of changing a little things here and there and kind of see what happens, and if things are going better this way, or could you maybe do it this way instead, or like when we kind of like done a few episodes and whatnot, you kind of get a little idea of kind of like, okay, this could have been better, or like what if I do this instead, and like that, I think that's kind of how I would summarize it in a way. It's like trial and error and kind of like getting a feel for the format and kind of like getting a little bit experience of how making a podcast could be.
Yeah, because before doing this podcast, we have never done a podcast. We have never done anything like that at all. And for me, for example, I don't have any education in sound editing. So also in that department, it's just trial and error and try to see what sounds the best. Because I've never edited anything like this before. So that was a very new part for me as well. And I think that got better and better during the season. And I hope it's going to get even better this season.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. That things are going to be. It's kind of like overall we're gonna kind of go for a similar approach, but kind of a evolved and kind of a better version of what we've done so far.
Yeah,
I
most
think
definitely.
because I think at least I think that I've been able to kind of like become a little bit more comfortable in kind of like what we are doing,
Yeah.
and also getting a little better idea of how you can do things and stuff like that. So kind of like taking experience we've gotten so far, and to really like make something better. So I definitely looking forward to the coming episodes and
Absolutely.
the stuff we're gonna do in the future, so to speak.
How do you feel about the expectations that you had for season 1 of the podcast? Do you feel like they were met to some extent?
I don't really know. I mean, it's kind of hard to say which expectations I had, because it's hard to have expectations because we didn't really know what we were getting into exactly.
True.
But yeah, I mean, we were doing it, and we managed to stay somewhat consistent, and stuff like that. So I think like in that regard, my expectations was pretty met.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, because the whole reason to why we did this podcast from the beginning is because we both love heavy metal, and we're music lovers from the beginning, and we felt like we wanted to do some kind of project to give back to the community, in a way. And,
I mean that of course, but it was also like as we talked about before. It's like we were sitting like way before we even thought about starting a podcast. We were sitting and like discussing in a similar way, but like between each other.
Yeah.
About like new bands, like check out this band. It's great and all that. But then we like kind of thought that why not like make a podcast or something, and instead of just sharing bands in this way between each other, why not just try to like share it to a larger number of people?
Yeah.
And also it kind of goes into this idea like when you say like when you find a great underground band or like that, and you kind of feel like yeah man, like these are great, but like they deserve so many more listeners, like why aren't these guys more famous, and that kind of thing. But it's like doing what we're doing like this, it's kind of a way to not only say like these should be more famous, but it's like what if we make a podcast and try to actually make them get more listeners, and to kind of like try to actually actively support them in that way, and not just talk about it, like you talk the talk, but you also walk the walk, basically.
Yeah, and this ties into the idea of not talking about a lot of the big bands as well, because when we talk about bands together between you and me, we don't necessarily talk about this large band is awesome, you have to listen to it, because it might have been, most of the time it may be smaller bands, pretty much like we talk about in the podcast. And like I found this band on Facebook, for example, because I've seen that more and more bands advertise themselves over Facebook with Facebook ads and that sort of thing. And like this band you have to listen to because they made this awesome song or something like that. And I think that if I would come with Metallica, for example, you've heard Metallica probably even more than me. Or like Guns N' Roses. We both have heard Guns N' Roses a lot. And I think that that is pretty similar out there as well. Most people have heard about, at least in the community, have heard about Guns N' Roses, have heard about Ozzy Osbourne, has heard about Kiss, and all of those. So there isn't really any point in doing an episode about those bands, because they have so much exposure already.
Yeah, and I mean, like taking Metallica as an example, it's like there already are like numerous podcasts or like specifically dedicated to a band like Metallica.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it didn't really make any sense whatsoever for us to do that as well. And also it was kind of like the idea as well, which we've said before, I believe, that we wanted to use our podcast as a way to kind of like give more underground or underrated bands a kind of like place within podcasting,
Yeah.
which has grown so popular over the last years. And we felt that it made sense to kind of like start a podcast to give the underground bands actually a place within this increasingly popular format.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we tie back a little bit about season 1 of the podcast again, was there something that you like really disliked about the season, or something that you liked? Is there anything in particular that you think that we could have been better at doing?
I don't think there's anything actually that I really like dislike, so to speak. I mean, it's kind of like I was saying, we were doing what we were doing, and we were very consistent in getting the episodes uploaded. And it was very fun to speak both about the bands, but also with some of them. But speaking of that exactly, speaking with the bands, it's something that I kind of wished that we could have done more.
Yeah.
Like more interviews and stuff like that, which is something that we are planning to actually do more of for the future of the podcast, to actually do more interviews, but also more consistently.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit and talked about maybe doing try to do an interview at least once a month or something like that.
Yes, exactly. So we're definitely gonna try to like be more consistent with how we are doing the interviews, and to try to upload one interview per every 4th week.
Yeah.
So I mean, I suppose it kind of like depends a little bit about the contact between us and bands and such.
Yeah.
But we're gonna try to have a schedule for the interviews as well from now on, and to make one interview every 4th week.
I think that's gonna be a very, very good improvement for the upcoming season that we're starting off right now.
Yes.
Something that I also thought a little bit about was the episode structure, how we structure our episodes. Because that was in the beginning of season 1. It was very different between you and me. We structured our episodes very differently, which got more and more similar towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think so too. That's kind of like the way I see it as well.
And that is something that I want to continue with in season 2, to have more a similar structure. So you really get those recognizable parts during an episode.
Yeah.
We were not only gonna do more interviews. I think that we're gonna do a lot more tour stories episodes, which was also a new concept that we launched during season 1. And we only did 2 episodes of this. I think that we should do a lot more, because it's a very fun concept to record and make an episode about, since it's not really an interview, or it isn't an interview. It's more that the bands get the opportunity to come on the podcast and tell us stories about what they have experienced on the road.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of think also one thing that I really like about that concept is that we're kind of like, in a way, like moving the kind of how do you say, like the control from us to the band, or like the musician we are inviting. That they are kind of the ones who are controlling the whatever we're talking about.
Yeah, they sort of almost become the host of the episode.
Yeah, in a way,
we're still hosting the episodes,
I would
obviously.
kind of say that is a pretty accurate
Yeah.
like explanation of it. That they are kind of the more host of the episode in a way than what we are.
Yeah.
And that we are kind of like asking questions and such, depending on what they are saying. So it's not like
a little bit of follow-up questions to some situations to know a little bit more and that sort of thing. But
yeah, exactly. It's like it's not like an interview that is like very, very like strict with like you have the questions that you're asking and the musician is answering accordingly to that. It's kind of more, I would say, it's more spontaneous and it's a little bit little bit less formal than what an interview is.
Another way to put it is that an interview is very structural and in a very like framework kind of thing. And then the Chore Stories episodes are very storytelling more and very laid back. It's a very chill vibe in those episodes. And that's one thing that I like with them. Another thing that I like with these episodes are that we don't know what stories the bands are gonna tell.
No, we do
not at all. We don't want to know prior to the episode. So when you guys hear it on the episode, it's kind of the same time as we hear it the first time. And that's something that I really like with it.
Yeah, that's something I kind of like as well, and it's kind of like in a way I prefer it like that, because it's like you know, our reactions and such to the stories are like completely genuine and such, and it's like, I don't know, it's a very special thing to me, at least, that like our kind of like follow-up questions and such comes very like spontaneously. So it kind of like I think that has to do with the kind of like laid back feel and atmosphere we kind of want in those type of episodes. That it's not like super like structured or whatever. Like it's meant to be kind of like laid back and, you know, kind of spontaneous and so. And,
absolutely.
And by not planning so like strictly before, we can like get that, I think.
Yeah. I think that's really good to do, and I really like those episodes. I would like to do way more of those episodes in season 2 here.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then I don't really know yet if that's gonna take the spot a month from an interview, if we don't have an interview but we have a Tour Stories episode, or if that's gonna have its own date that we release it. That I haven't figured out, or we haven't figured out yet. But I guess that's something that's gonna... Or do you have an idea right now if you wanted to have the spot of an interview if we have an episode, or is this gonna get its own date when we release it?
No, there's not exactly like confirmed yet. I think there's kind of like downsides to it, but also perhaps some benefits to it as well.
Yeah.
I think that part is something we need to discuss more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will announce it whenever we know for sure. In another way, like on social media and stuff like that. So when we know, we will announce it, but we don't know exactly right now.
Yeah. So, and that's... I don't know if that's gonna be once a month or so, but we're absolutely gonna try to do more. Because I really like that laid back feel. And I would actually like, even though interviews are very structured, I would like to get more of that laid back feel into the interviews as well. Which I think is really good. And something that is important to mention here is also that even though we're going into season 2 right now, there might still be that we bring back bands that we have talked about in season 1 and make interviews with them. That is, we have not closed that door yet, because I feel like if we want to do an episode with one of those bands, we're gonna do that. We will most definitely not make an own main episode again with updates, because that was more season 1. In season 2, it's gonna be more if we want to do a Tour Stories episode, like we talked about right now, or a regular interview. But now we can talk a little bit about more what we can expect when it comes to the regular episodes, what bands we were gonna talk about. I guess you talked a little bit about that you would like to do more of a mix in genres and nations in the future.
Yeah, exactly. There is something. If you kind of like look back on the episodes I've done so far for the podcast, a lot of them are thrash metal, and a lot of those bands are coming from Sweden and the UK. And even though both Sweden and UK, of course, has incredible metal scenes today. For example, the UK is a metal scene that definitely just keeps on giving, and it's a very, very good scene with a lot of very, very good bands. So I mean, it's not so strange that a lot of those episodes are done is about bands from the UK because of this. But at the same time, I think it would kind of be a little bit more interesting if I kind of like try to mix it up more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like it's so clearly most bands that I've talked about are thrash, which I mean, again, there's so many great thrash metal bands, and I mean, thrash metal is like, I would say, my favorite genre in general. So me talking about a lot of thrash metal bands, it's not so strange or far-fetched. But I'm also a big fan of death metal and black metal. So I'm going to try to kind of make a more mix of that, to try to also implement death metal bands and black metal bands. And I also kind of think that maybe that would be more interesting for the listeners as well. For example, if you who are listening likes death metal a little bit more than thrash metal, or black metal a little bit more than thrash metal, I think like me mixing it up a little bit is gonna be able to kind of get more people interested, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that I could make more of in season 2 as well, because I've talked about one prog metal band, one blues rock type of a vibe band, and then glam rock or glam metal. Because pretty much all of the rest of the bands have been glam metal for me. So it would be kind of fun to discover more genres of that type of vibe, because we have power metal, we have symphonic blah blah blah. There are millions of subgenres that we can talk about, and it would be kind of fun to discover more of those genres as well in season 2. Then I think that I have a little bit of a more mix in countries though. I have Sweden, I have Netherlands, I have some band comes from somewhere in South America, I think. We have Italy, we have Spain, I think I have some. I have a big mix when it comes to nations. But I think that I should absolutely try to get a more mix in the genres that I talk about.
Yeah, because I mean, I think when you're talking like about nations, like countries, I think what makes it interesting to kind of like mix that up a little bit as well is that there are a lot of great metal bands from you know, a lot of countries that you perhaps didn't really expect to have such a great scene, unless you're very like die hard about metal. Then you might know a lot of those countries. But for example, just to take like a very quick example of that, I would say is Belgium. It's like for someone who might not like be super diehard Mel fan, might not like associate Mel so much with Belgium, but Belgium has some insanely great metal bands.
Yeah. I don't think I can. I don't think I can think about or think of a band that comes from Belgium right now.
I mean, the obvious example would be a band like Acid or Crossfire.
Okay. Yeah, that's more your genres.
Yeah, but also our buddies in the band Butcher, who we have spoken about earlier on this podcast. Right. They are also from Belgium.
I think
so. Like the kind of point I tried to make is that we are trying to like promote bands, of course, but also it would be kind of like cool to promote bands and scenes from places that a lot of people might not perhaps think about looking. You know, countries like Sweden, Germany, or maybe even UK.
Yeah.
Feels a little bit more obvious that there are so many great metal bands. But there are a lot of countries that might not like that. Not so many people might think about looking, but that has some very very great metal bands, and that's a thing that I am planning to focus on for the coming episodes, to kind of like support those scenes as a whole in a way. Like, you know, well, UK has a lot of legendary metal bands, but you know, look at this country as well. To kind of implement that idea into the podcast as well.
One country that I thought about right now that we haven't talked about much at all, that's actually US.
I have US bands, but we have I don't know. I don't think we have spoken like super much about US either, actually.
Yeah, that's one of those. We have episodes with bands that come from US, but they are not. There are not a lot of them. You might think that US is one of those countries with Whiskey A Go Go and all of that stuff. You might think that that's one of those countries that spews out metal bands, but we haven't done many episodes at all with bands from US. So that might also be something that we can look into a lot more in season 2, actually.
Yeah.
Because I still believe that a lot of good bands are coming from US.
I mean, some of my absolute favorite bands in general comes from the US. So
yeah,
definitely.
But I'm also I'm not just thinking about the good old famous ones. I'm also thinking about the new bands that we can see today coming out.
Yeah.
But something that we brought in pretty late in season 1 and that we're working with catching up right now is YouTube. We decided to start launching our episodes on YouTube as well. Which we didn't think about in the beginning of the season, which was kind of stupid in a way because, as you said, the YouTube and Spotify are apparently two of the largest platforms when it comes to podcasts. So we would be super stupid if we weren't on YouTube.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of like a funny thing that I kind of thought of as well, that when I was kind of like thinking about it, I was like, yeah, well, is YouTube that like famous for podcasts? Like, like I don't really listen to any podcasts on YouTube, but then like when I kind of like thought about it a little bit more, I kind of realized more and more podcasts who I am actually watching on YouTube. So I kind of like realized, well, you know what? I'm actually listening to several podcasts on YouTube myself.
Yeah.
When I at first didn't think of even one, but then I just realized, well, that is actually a podcast. Well, I am looking at that. So then I kind of realized that, yeah, YouTube totally makes sense for us to be on.
I think that as well. And I'm working right now with putting out all of the episodes on YouTube. So as of right now, we're releasing one episode from season 1 a day on YouTube.
Yeah, and I mean, as I think I mentioned a little bit quick before, but I can do it again, is that we are planning to release all of our previous episodes.
Yes.
To kind of get them uploaded to YouTube. But then when we have kind of like catched up to the episodes we are doing at the moment, we are gonna start uploading to YouTube in the same frequency as the other places, such as Spotify.
Yeah, it's gonna go back to our regular schedule with once a week thing.
So YouTube is going to start being in our regular schedule when the previous episodes are all already uploaded, so to speak.
Yeah, as of in the recording moment, I believe we are on episode. Yeah, exactly. We are on episode 23 right now in recording moment, but it's gonna be a few days. What is it? 5 days until this episode is going up, so we're gonna be on episode 28 or something. Exactly, we're gonna be on episode 28 when this episode is gonna be released. So, and there are 50 episodes, I think exactly, in season 1. So, until the 50th episode is going to be released, we are going to release an episode every day, and then it's gonna go back to once a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and one thing that ties into that also, which I have talked about in our episodes during season 1, and that is that actually you guys that listen to these episodes, you can decide actually what band we're gonna talk about, because we read all of the comments and all of that sort of stuff, and we try to answer all of the comments as well. And if you have any idea of like, I found this band and I would love to see an episode with or about them at least, just comment on our YouTube or comment on our Instagram post or Facebook posts, and then we're going to take that suggestion in consideration. And
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if you would feel the same kind of way that we did, like yeah, this band, I like this band a lot, and these guys deserve more recognition or more listeners, then feel free to let us know, and like write them in a comment to us or something like that, and we will try to make it into an episode.
Absolutely. And we have one thing to say is that we have actually gotten messages to us with suggestions of bands, and bands that has contacted us and suggested making an episode, and some of those has become an episode.
Yes,
for example,
and some of them are still in the planning phase, so to
yeah,
speak.
exactly. One example might be Mindustry, our final episode that we had in season 1. That was one of those suggestions that where they contacted us and asked us to make an episode, and then we happily made an episode.
Yeah, and I could also mention that actually Gustav from Mindustry also suggested me to make the band about the episode about Ominum, which was the episode before that. So Gustav from Mindustry also suggested Ominum, so that was also a band that was suggested to us.
Yeah, and that is something that we would absolutely happily make more of in season 2 as well, taking the listeners' suggestions in consideration and make episodes with that.
And I think it's worth to really mention that the more, like, if you comment a band to us, if you suggest a band to us, it is a very, very high chance that we are actually going to do it.
Absolutely.
So if you have a band, write it to us, and there's a very, very high chance that we're actually going to do it if you suggest it to us.
And that doesn't matter if you're in a band or if you know about a band. Just contact us about it, and then it might even be that if we're contacted about a band, maybe that's even gonna come before other episodes that we have planned. Maybe we even move that up in our like priorities, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I mean is that when you suggest a band to us, we are always going to prioritize suggested bands above bands that perhaps we thought about maybe mentioning.
Yeah.
So, like, if you as a listener suggest a band to us, we are going to prioritize it
Most definitely.
as well as we can.
And like you said, some of them are in the planning phase. It's just that we've just launched season 2. And I have contact with at least one band right now that I'm planning an episode. And then we're gonna have to decide if you're the one that is gonna do the first verbalization of the season, or if I'm gonna do the first. That is something that the listeners are gonna have to follow us on our social media and then find out over there. But with that in consideration, do you have anything more to add?
I don't think I have. I think we're kind of like talked about the kind of like mostly important for now.
I think that as well. I think that we have mentioned everything that is the most important for now, at least. And then the rest that we haven't mentioned, maybe that is different plans that we have planned. I don't know. But that's something that you guys are going to have to find out during the season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if there's anything that we decide on later or something else that we'd like to add, we are going to add it on social media and stuff like that. So, which is one of the reasons to why I would highly suggest that you follow us on social medias, because we are uploading some information there and stuff like that. That could be very important if you want to follow us and to kind of keep track of what is happening on the podcast and stuff like that.
Even though we mostly upload when we're planning for an episode and what episode is going to be the next one, we do sometimes, when things happen, release other posts and that sort of stuff with important information. So go and follow us on our social medias. And like we've talked about as well, if you have a band that you know of or play in, you can contact us over there. And we're going to take your suggestion in consideration and most likely make an episode. I think we're going to wrap this up. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you are as pumped for season 2 as we are. And I guess we're gonna see you guys in the next episode. So bye for now.
Yeah, bye.